So welcome everybody to what we're calling Living with Source, all about accessing your inner guidance. And this is a really interesting topic, and I know we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. I'm Robin Retallick, Law of Attraction Club, on the web at theloaclub.com. With me is Mary Beth, who is the person most involved with this particular program. And so she's going to be helping with the presentation this evening. And since we've usurped Rachel's normal Thursdays with Torah, she's also with us, and we're going to ask Rachel to give us the Torah side of things whenever she feels that it's appropriate to do so. So we're going to keep this as interactive as we can. Have a lot of fun here tonight. So, a few quick words here about Create Your Life, which was sort of the subject of yesterday. It's all about how do you change the way you're experiencing your reality? How do you change your life? How do you change your world? We did a lot of things yesterday in that program at some depth that we're going to do a little bit less of depth tonight because the programs are, of course, slightly different. And they looked like very different programs, and I'll talk in a minute about the history of all of this. And they started out, we thought, being different, but as the more and more we got into it, and as these programs evolved, it became very clear that they are entirely complementary. So one of the things we'll be doing is making available to all of you a replay of both of these sessions. But we're also offering what we call a twofer, which is, as you'll see later on, we're offering both programs for a massive discount if you want to do both. And they really are complementary. So if this was going to be the year you wanted to really step into something different, then this is really an outstanding way of doing it. If this is going to be the year when you really start to put your hands on the wheel there and steer where you want to go, this is a great time to be thinking about doing that. So, this evening we'll be covering what is channeling and who can do it and why would you want to do it and how do you learn, in quotes, to do it, and we'll get into all of those things. Since we're talking a lot about channeling tonight, actually it was Mary Beth's idea. She suggested that we all three do a bit of channeling up front here, but since I'm a bit engaged here with all of the techniques of running this call, I'm going to call on those two just to briefly bring Torah through. So, Mary Beth, whenever you're ready.
We are here, of course, and we welcome each and every one of you to this wonderful call, this wonderful interaction. We want you to understand that channeling is not something for the special few, and of course Robin will get into this some more. Each and every one of you is connected to Source, all that is, to your inner guidance, whether you realize it or not. And so what we want you to understand about this course is that it is about honing the skill of really listening, and then if you so desire, giving voice, giving verbal words to what you are hearing in that connected place. It is a place of absolute love. It is a place of absolute well-being. It is a place of joy. And so we welcome you to this call. We welcome you, to that expansion of you into that greater knowing, into that place where you know that you are Source, that you are part of all that is. And so it is with great love that we begin this call, and we now come through Rachel.
And of course we've said it all already, but we just want to really put a point on the fact that channeling is not exclusive to a few. It is not a special gift. It is not something that is hard to do. It is not something that is hard to learn. It is something that you innately know. It is part of your natural state of being to be connected, you see. You are connected at all times. It is simply here in physical formats that at times that gets a little forgotten for a while because you become quite enamored with physical reality, and we understand why. But we want to encourage you to open your mind and open your connection, as you will, quite naturally, as we proceed through this call, through this evening. You will naturally open up to possibilities. You will naturally open up your connection. And in fact, we would like to let you know that you are in fact in an even more connected state at this moment than you were, say, 10 minutes ago, simply because you are relaxed, you have intention, and you are open to what is being shared here. And we will again say that we are very pleased to be here. We are pleased that you are here, and we are looking forward to this interaction very much.
Good.
Indeed.
Thanks, Tara. Thanks, Rachel. Thanks, Mary Beth. Having these people channeling in the same program seems so normal and natural to us now, and yet I want to talk a bit about the history of the club and so on. But we've learned so much since this was formed back in 2008. We thought we had a pretty fair handle on a lot of things, but boy, have we learned a lot since then. So, we'll be talking about the answer to those 4 questions above. We'll be talking a little bit about the program, Living with Source, how it came about and what's in it. We're going to talk about the 3 absolutes. What are the things that you are not at choice about? What are the things that lie beneath everything? Because we all have a story or stories about the way things are, and that is our particular choice of the game we're playing, in a sense. But there are 3 absolutes that sit beneath everything, and we're going to talk about those because they are very key to this process of channeling. And then certainly we'll get to your questions, comments, and any discussion that arises from that. The plan is to do about 60 minutes, but who knows? This could easily go to 90 minutes, which depends on how it all pans out here. And of course, how many questions and how interactive it all is with you. Let me go to the next slide here. And on the left, that's me. On the right is my friend Bob, and you can see us there. We're both sporting our Abraham Hicks seminar at conference attendee badges there, because that was taken as when we were in one of those some ways back, I guess, a good 5 years ago. The reason I put that up is I wanted to give you a little bit of history here. My journey on all this, when I look back on my life, of course, it's been a lifelong journey, but it really began in terms of law of attraction and all of this stuff when my other half, Eva, introduced me to Abraham Hicks back in 1990 or thereabouts. I was sort of skeptical at first and then a bit intrigued, and then the bells started going off because it was answering my questions. It was answering my questions in a way that they'd never been answered before. One of the nice things about the Abraham Hicks, Abraham through Esther presentation is, of course, there's no story involved or very little. They really do speak from the basics, which was what was appealing. Fast forward 18 years, and long story short, I hooked up originally with Nina Farrell, now retired, who was channeling Abraham. I thought, well, why don't we get together and form this community? Since I'd had experience helping Eva, did many teleconferences and so on, I was experienced with that technology. I thought, well, we could do that instead of doing things in hotels, and we could take it to a much wider audience, therefore. And the idea back then, of course, was to have one person, same as Esther does, channeling Abraham. We call it Tara these days to avoid any conflict with their organization. One person channeling Abraham, Tara. And a couple of things, amazing things happened. One was suddenly we were in this world of spirituality in a much more engaged way. And Nina kept, I was talking to Mary Beth today, Nina kept pushing these websites at me in which there were myriads and myriads of people who were channeling or something like that. And the stories were so varied and detailed in some of them. And I was quite confused at that time. I said to Tara, what's going on here? You know, some of these stories are contradictory. And of course, then the obvious answer came back was, it's not just the physical world that conforms to your beliefs, it's the non-physical, which was a hell of a revelation. In other words, whatever you choose to believe forms your total experience, be it physical or non-physical. And so everybody has their stories, and if their story is something about the non-physical, then that's what they will create. That's what will be their experience. And the second thing that was sort of a real surprise for us was the number of people that came out of the woodwork, so to speak, and said, you know, I think I'm starting to channel. And we had to sort of make a decision then as to what we did with that. And I'm sure that Jerry and Esther back then also made that decision because they would have had the same reaction. Our decision was, although we had no idea what we were doing back then, was to encourage people, because why not? That just seemed like a normal and natural thing to do. And as Tara said back then, yes, you know, there are many people who will be channeling and you can support them. And by the way, Robin, you also. And I said, who, what, who, me? Me, the engineer, channeling, like Esther? Seemed pretty far-fetched to me. A few months after that, of course, when all that started, I have unlimited access to Tara through Nina, and then through Eva, my other half, who also said she would never channel, and she started channeling. And so with that unlimited access, of course, a lot of the questions that we'd had previously started to get answered. And there I was on a Skype chat one day with Bob. That's the other guy in this picture. Bob has studied Buddhism and many of the religions of the world, and he has some very strong ideas about the way things are. And some of those were a little off from what I discovered or thought they were. So as you might imagine, we locked horns and had these intense discussions. And one day I was sitting there chatting with him on Skype, and we were talking about something, I can't even remember what it was. And unbeknownst to me, he got up and left his computer and went away and did something else for a while. But in the meantime, he was away. I was chatting away. And in the end, I typed, and there is great love here for you. And it wasn't like something took over my hands, because those of you who know anything about channeling, you know it's not a takeover experience at all. It just seemed like the right thing to say. And I was starting to sense that it was more than me that was speaking here. And the tears just started pouring down my cheeks. And the next day, I was talking to him on the phone, and I said to him, you know, what happened yesterday? And I described what happened. And at the end of all of that conversation, I said to him verbally, and there is great love for you here. Once again, tears streaming down my cheeks. And that was the beginning of Robin channeling. I've discovered since that it's as normal and natural as having breakfast, but we'll get into that. And it's also a unique experience for everybody. Everybody comes to this with their own stories, of course, as I do, and you will. But for everybody, it's a unique experience. It is fascinating to watch as different people sort of get into this and the way it flows for them and the way it works for them and so on. And we'll talk some more about that, of course, as we go through the presentation here. Let me talk a little bit about it before we get into some of the absolutes here. Just to comment on the fact that we're physical creatures. And by the way, Mary Beth, Rachel, Tara, but in any time you want to add something to anything I'm saying here, please, let's make this as interactive as we can.
Indeed we will. We are not shy.
Good. So being physical creatures, we tend to think in terms of boxes and boundaries and ends and beginnings of things. You know, I go as far as my fingers or the top of my head or the bottom of my feet. So I'm in this sort of parcel that begins and ends here. And so when we talk about, for example, the sort of parts of me, the physical me, the conscious me, the subconscious me, maybe my inner being or higher self or whatever it is, and then that link back to all that is, or God or source or however you want to call it, we tend to think of those as sort of components, and they have a border and a boundary, and one ends and the other one starts. And one of the things we found, of course, in all of this conversation was that there are no boundaries in non-physical. There are no boxes. And while they are useful as concepts to help us describe things, we also need to understand that in the non-physical realm, there are no boxes. If you look at that spectrum there, which is what the colours of a white light, or a rainbow, if you like, and I said to you, where's the boundary between red and yellow? You can see that there is no boundary. There is just more red or more yellow. And so it is with all of the parts of us. And that turns out to be a pretty key concept. Because the first absolute is in answer to the question, who are you? You're a consciousness. You're part of the total consciousness of everything. The consciousness of all that is, or God, or the universe, or source, or however you want to call it. That's what you are. At your core, you are a consciousness. And there are parts to you. There's the conscious you, the physical you. There's the subconscious you, for want of a better word. There's the inner being or higher self of you, and then that connection back to the total source of all that is. And nowhere in any of that stream is there an actual boundary. It seems like from the physical to the conscious thing, there's something quite different. But what we've come to discover is that there is no difference. In other words, this physical you is your creation. And it comes from all of those expectations that you have, and we'll talk about that, in the same way as everything else does in your experience. And when you get this, that you are in fact part of a swirling interaction of many pieces back there, then you start to see that channeling is normal and natural, because all we're doing is reaching back, if you like, beyond the normal conscious barriers that we live with and into something of a different conversation. It is as normal and natural, as I said, as having breakfast.
Indeed, and part of what it is really tapping into a bigger part, if you will, big, not quite being the word we're looking for, but a broader part of all that is. When this one is channeling, when Robin is channeling, when Mary Beth is channeling, it is simply tapping into a broader part of the spectrum that you are already part of, you see. That is all that they're doing. They're simply allowing their vibration to match the vibration of something a little bit faster and a little bit broader. And that's where we come in with them. For we are connected to them. It is not, as Robin said earlier, that we take over their bodies like marionettes and make them say things. They are only channeling that which they are part of, you see. They are not being taken over. They are part of this conversation. They join together with the energy that is Tara, and together is what you are hearing in this experience. Indeed, yes.
Thank you. All right. So just bear this diagram in mind, folks. Think from this sort of perspective when you're thinking about these things we're talking about here. So let's go to these three absolutes. Let's look at the first one, which is you're a consciousness, part of the conscious of all is God. And the second absolute, and this gets watered down so many times by so many different people who are supposedly law of attraction gurus. It is the organizing principle of everything, physical and non-physical. So whatever is in your experience is going to be a match to you, whether it's physical or non-physical. If we look at the old definition of the law of attraction, you attract into your experience, whether wanted or unwanted, that which you give your energy, focus, and attention, which, as far as it goes, is a good definition. But after 18 years of being heavily involved with Abraham, 2,000 plus hours, being in their seminars, being in the hot seat, and much more around the fringe in different areas, questions for me remained. There were still unanswered questions. And so it was really important then to start thinking about what is the definition that answers those unanswered questions. And this is the one, our current version, the current favorite, if you like, definition of the law of attraction. And every word in this definition is important. You attract into your world, note the capitals, your world. Wanted or unwanted, nothing different there. It's always been that you will attract what you want by focusing on it, or attract what you don't want by focusing on it. Unique to you, your world, remember, unique to you, moment by moment, the sum of your conscious, but mostly subconscious, expectations. So what's new here? This next slide, it's the view from my window. I look out from here over the San Francisco Bay, and you can just see in the background there, that's the Golden Gate Bridge sitting right against the skyline right in the middle. And in front of that is Alcatraz, and in front of that is the sort of local marina here. But it's a view I can see from my office. And Eva, my other half, is facing the same direction. And she sees, as you might expect, pretty much the same view. And yet back in the early days, they kept telling me that it's not the same view. It's not the same world as she sees. And I couldn't get it. And finally I got it. And they told me to go study up on quantum physics and all that sort of stuff. And what when I finally got to was that this world that supposedly we're sharing with everybody is in fact not a shared world. That it is my world, and I attract into it that which is a match to me. This is how we got to the idea then that it's not a shared common world that we have to deal with. And when you think about it, the law of attraction says you can have it any way you want it. You can have, be, or do anything. There's nothing you cannot change. And if I'm sharing my life with somebody and they want to go somewhere there, they want to live in the hills and I want to live at the beach, but I still want to live with them and they want to live with me, by law of attraction, that's a paradox. Because law of attraction says you can live in the hills and they want to live at the beach. You can both have it, but you can't. So it's a mystery. But once you understand that, you will intersect with the version of them that's a match to you and a match to the hills if that's what you want. And they will match up with the version of you that's a match to the beach, and so on. And so there's an infinite number of versions of everything. And if you like, you're picking from a smorgasbord of versions of things and places and people to compose your world. And it looks like a solid world. It looks continuous. It's certainly a very convincing game, isn't it? But it's your world, unique to you. And it's a moment-by-moment creation of yours. When you woke up this morning, you created the world around you. What a miracle. The floor, the walls, gravity, time, everything about your world you create moment by moment. And that's sort of why that old definition of the law of attraction needed a little bit of revising here. The old definition said you attract into your experience that which you give your energy, focus, and attention. So, how much attention did you give this morning when you woke up to creating the floor, the walls, the ceiling, time, gravity, and all that stuff? The answer is none at all. And that's because it's a moment-by-moment creation, and it's defined by the tapestry of expectations that you have. that you've built up and stored away, and mostly those are in your subconscious. So the wall and the floor, gravity and time and all that stuff was there because you knew it would be. You expected it to be without reservation. You see, you choose what to believe. Your beliefs spawn all the expectations you have about everything, and those expectations define your reality. So that's the law of attraction. As I mentioned, we spent a lot more time on this last night. Of course, you'll have the playbacks available for both of these sessions, and if you want to get into more detail, you can listen to last night's webinar replay. Get that to you in the next day or so. The third absolute is, apart from 1 and 2, which you're not a choice about, everything else is a choice. Everything. There's nothing you cannot be, do, or have, and there's nothing you cannot change. And when we say nothing, that means nothing. You can change anything. I put together this little sort of map of everything here, which has the absolutes that we've talked about. Your consciousness, it's a part of all that is. And the law of attraction organizes everything in the universe, physical and non-physical. And so all of these things around there are the story that you have chosen. You have, by your beliefs, chosen one or more or none of those, depending on what it is you believe. Probably a few of those things you've chosen as a belief system. You've chosen to expect things. Certainly time and gravity seems to be a common thing about this world that we're in. But all of these are choices. You have chosen what to believe. Those beliefs cause you to expect these things to be right or wrong. It's up to you. But all of them are a choice. And the interesting thing here, of course, in the context of this conversation that we're having about channeling and about your connection to sources, each of you, if you channel, and you all can, and you all could, and we've never had a failure in any of our groups from somebody being able to do that, then if you do that, then the way you experience that process will be unique to you. The entity or entities, singular or plural, however you choose to describe them, will be a function of what you are creating, that is, what is your point of attraction. And there's nobody and nothing that can tell you what it is that you will be doing with that. It's up to you entirely. It is your call. And so if some of these things in that black print there look to you as if they're not choices, that's just the way things are, the idea of this map of everything is to, if you like, do a bit of damage to that belief, to have you understand that there's nothing you cannot change. You can have it any way you want it. So, to get into some questions, and I guess we'll get a little more interaction here perhaps from Mary Beth and Tara, but 4 questions we posed at the start were, what is channeling? And here's Robin's definition of it. Of course, as I said, your experience, your knowledge may vary. But I would say it is simply surfacing in the consciousness. That is allowing the barrier that normally sits between what you consciously think about and what is back there in that subconscious. You allow that to be permeable. You allow yourself to dip into that. You surface in the consciousness part of that conversation that's already going on. And who can do it? Anybody. In fact, you're already doing in the essence of what it is that channeling is already, because you're already in that communication, whether you're conscious of it or not. Why would you want to do it? Now, here's something else that we've changed our ideas about, or certainly I have. Because when we started out, we thought, well, channeling, we get some answers to some mystical questions, and straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, straight from God, if you like. We can get our questions answered. It turns out to be a whole lot more than that. It is a way of getting support. Tara has come to me to be one of my, perhaps in a way that's unique, really good friends. They are powerful support to me, and it's amazing to have that contact, the guidance that you get, plus it's a powerful tool for getting into alignment. On Saturday, I'll be doing most of the channeling at 9 o'clock Pacific call time, and that'll be the wrap-up of this series of open calls that we're doing, and we'll be answering any questions that are left and so on and so on. But invariably, after those calls, it is amazing to me. It's not like it's hard work. It's innovating. It is uplifting. It is aligning. It is enlightening too.
We just want to throw in there that sometimes there are very physical results after channeling. In other words, sometimes this one could come on and feel a little out of sort, and maybe her neck's a little stiff, maybe something's going on physically, and after the call, that also has smoothed itself out. Perhaps not disappeared, but smoothed itself out considerably, simply because she relaxed and allowed herself to open up to the true nature of who she is, you see. And when you are in that kind of alignment, it has all sorts of repercussions in your world. Indeed. We just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you. Yes. And you probably want to comment on the next one too. How do you learn to do it? Well, we've used the book Opening the Channel as a textbook in our courses. But the more we've got into it, the more, at least from my perspective, and I'd be interested in Mary Beth and Rachel and Taraz's comments on this, the more we've discovered that it's less of something very special that has to happen and has to be done and cultivated and whatever, and more just accepting that internal conversation we seem to be having with ourselves can include others, and allowing it to happen. Expecting it to happen, allowing it to happen.
Indeed, and we would add to that books such as Opening the Channel and processes that we have discussed on a variety of calls, processes like meditation, for instance, all of these little tools are simply ways to help you believe that it's possible for you, by giving you little techniques that allow your mind to relax, allow your beliefs to open, allow your expectations to open. Opening the channel. Open is a good word. Connecting in is another good phrase. But humans have trained themselves, and we understand this very well because we have been around as long as you have, and we love you very much, and we observe you, and we understand that much of those boxes that you saw on a previous slide were shown that were a representation of how humans come to define things. You have constructed ideas that it's a process to do this and it's a process to do that, and there are steps, and we say, of course, we are acquiescing to that which will make it easier for you to understand and accept and to step into a version of your reality where this is very easy for you. And it is much easier, and in fact we recommend often that you step your way rather than bolt your way or force your way, or which of course never really works, but that you ease your way from one level of beliefs and expectations to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. For instance, if you are very poor, it is hard to accept that in 5 minutes I'm going to be a billionaire, you see. But perhaps you could accept that maybe a friend will hand you $5, maybe you'll find some change in your pocket. That's very easy to reach for, you see. And that's what we're doing. We're trying to ease you into a place where this becomes like breathing. This becomes that natural, that easy, that wonderful for you, that you just come to expect it. This one expects that when she breathes in, she's going to get air. You all do. And so we want you to have that kind of expectation with channeling. Now, when this one gets to Thursday night and she sits here in her chair, she expects we're going to be there, and guess what? We're here. We love being here. So, again, we love, thank you, Robin, opportunities to pop in here and to add on to what you have laid a nice groundwork for. Indeed.
And we would like to come through this one as well and add a bit more here, and that is that we often say that channeling is not special at all, that anyone can do it, and indeed that is the case. And yet, at the same time, some of you, many of you are beginning to feel this even now, that there is something lovely, and you can say special with quotation marks around it if you will. There is something wonderful happening within you. There is something that you are desiring, something more that you have been asking for, that you have been reaching for. So we want to really encourage you that indeed it does feel really wonderful, and to you it will feel special. Perhaps a better word might be new and refreshing and lovely and connected. And as we were saying through Rachel, it is about taking steps, little steps, step by step by step, steps of allowing and steps of trusting and steps of perhaps speaking to others, and understanding that the more that you desire to be in this connected state, the more you will be in this connected state, and the more that you expect it to be easy, the easier it will be. Just as with anything that you desire in your physical experience, if you expect it to be difficult, it will be difficult. If you expect it to be easy and a wonderful flow into well-being, then that is what you will have. And it will just keep getting better and better and better and easier and easier and easier. And so we want to encourage all of you on this call, if you are feeling some special stirring within you, so to speak, to listen to that, to ask yourself, to ask your inner guidance, what is this about? What is it that I am wanting here? What is my desire? And it may be that you eventually will want to channel, to voice channel. Maybe with us, it may be in our next session, or it may not be. It doesn't matter. It just matters that you listen to what you are, let us say, telling yourself, that your greater knowing is telling you. So just now on this call, as you are sitting here and as you are hearing us come through these channels, just allow yourself to listen to your own inner guidance, to listen to your own inner stirring, and to feel that little bit of something that is awakening within you. And so we just wanted to add that piece. And of course, there is much more.
Yes, while we're here discussing this, what I'd like one or both of you to get Gerard to comment on would be, when it started out here, it seemed like here was this sort of godlike essence, condescending to answer the questions for us poor people down here who really didn't have much clue. And clearly that's not the case. Can you comment on all of that?
We would just say very simply that that is a misunderstanding of who you really are. You see, that is a misunderstanding, a forgetting of who you really are, because who you are, and of course, Robin, we know you know this, who you are is this powerful, magnificent creator, manifester. Who you really are is source, part of source, all that is. And so how could you be something that we were condescending to? Not possible. You are like us. You are part of us. We are part of you. We are all part of source. You are magnificent. And as we were saying through Rachel earlier, there's just been some forgetting. That is all. And so this is about awakening and remembering the truth of who you are. And what an exciting journey that is.
We would also like to say, when you look at the word channeling, you can think of it as tuning into a channel. For instance, these ones are tuning into the channel of Torah. It is simply, again, as we stated earlier, a broader version of what you are seeing here in physical, because physical and non-physical cannot be separated. This physical one, as all of you physical beings are, is simply but magnificently part of something that is much bigger. She has a broader perspective, a being that is broader than what she is seeing here, but she is able to tap into that broader perspective. So she could simply bring through her broader perspective, and that would be quite amazing in and of itself, simply because that broader perspective is part of all that is part of us, you see. So she could tune into the channel of broader Rachel, although the broader perspective is not named Rachel. It really doesn't have much of a name, but you can name it anything you want. You can call us anything you like, you see. We simply use a name because it makes it easier for humans to sort of identify the personality that they are speaking to when they speak with us. But channeling, you're tuning into a channel, a broader channel of what you already are, you see. It is so natural. It is so ingrained. It is so who you are to be connected at all times. And the only one who makes it appear as if you are not connected is you. You see, that is simply a misperception in a situation, in a segment of time. When you feel disconnected, you're never disconnected. It's simply you have forgotten that you're part of something bigger. And you are determining that by looking at your physical world only, which is wonderful. But there is so much more happening than your physical eyes can identify to you. So you're tapping into the channel of all that is, you see.
Indeed, and we would just add one more piece here through this one, and that is that what these two are experiencing even now, of course, is really way beyond words. And so that is another part of what is so wonderful about their choosing to be in this place of connection. In other words, they are feeling this sense of expansion. They are feeling this sense of absolute love and beauty. And of course, it is all beyond words. It is not describable in words. And yet, what they are doing is they are allowing themselves to, the word isn't find, but because they are not really searching for words, but they are allowing themselves to speak in words what it is we are offering them as vibration. And so we promise you that they are more and more bringing this into their everyday reality, into their everyday experience, and it is changing the way that they experience this physical reality. So there are many, many wonderful benefits, and we are just wanting to mention these here, of course.
Good. While you were talking there, I had another thought too, which is there's a guy called Daryl who channels an entity called Bashar. And they have what they call the fundamentals, which is similar to what we are calling the absolutes. I was at one of their sessions in the Los Angeles area and I was in the hot seat and I was asking questions and I said, I am creating you, am I not? It just lets me explain that word create here. See, if we're attracting into our experience by the choices we make, we're effectively putting our hands into the clay of all that is and creating our world. And so you folk are literally creating this experience here this evening. And I said to Bashar, I am creating you in this moment, am I not? And he said, that is true. And we are also creating you. And that rocked me back on my heels a bit because I knew that I was creating my reality, but I didn't see a channeled entity as creating me. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, a channeled entity is, of course, part of the fabric of all that is and is, of course, part of the absolutes that you discussed earlier. One, part of all that is, and two, his reality is being organized by law of attraction, just as your reality is. And he is attracting by virtue of his vibration. Therefore, he is creating by virtue of his vibration, just as you are, you see. So we understand where that sort of rock back on your heels experience comes from. Here you are speaking with someone who is channeling an entity, and you think this entity, again, as sort of was the impression of Tara earlier on, they are these far evolved beings coming down to bestow wisdom from on high, and some do go to any channels, but to Bashar as well, and sort of look at him as, oh, Bashar is this far evolved version of us, and therefore much wiser, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we say, not at all. Simply sharing from his perspective. Simply sharing from his perspective, and also creating his world just as you are creating your world, and we, Tara, are creating our experience as well. We are creating our experience as well. Physical, non-physical, all one. All governed by law of attraction in terms of what is managing and organizing all of this. All part of all that is. No separation. All creating the experiences that we are vibratory matches to, you see.
Good.
Yes.
Let's talk now a little bit about a Living with Source program. This was our response to people coming to us and saying, I think I'm starting to channel. It became clear that part of our mission now was to allow people to step into that place. And so this program's evolved. I had a few names, but this is the one we call it now, and it seems to be the most appropriate name. Both of our programs, both this and Create Your Life, are very much front-loaded. In other words, there's a lot of intensive stuff in the first month or so, and then the rest of the 12 months is there to really lock it in, to really get it to a place of being a habit. So there's a lot of attention, personally from Tara. When you get into this program, it's one-on-ones, and it'll be learning you encouraged into this process at your own pace. Mary Beth, perhaps you want to talk some more of these things because you're more intimately involved in this story than I am.
I just want to say that I absolutely love this course. I love working with those who are wanting to step into channeling and voice channeling. Of course, there are all kinds of channeling. It can be through art. We have one of our participants here who does a lot of channeling through his art, and I've done some of that myself. But it is just thrilling to bring Tara through on one-on-ones, and sometimes it's guided visualizations. There are a lot of questions and answers, lots of wonderful pieces, and for everyone it's different. What comes through for each one is different. To just walk with them as they step into allowing greater and greater connection until the point where they finally start to speak, it's absolutely the most thrilling thing. I can't say enough about it. You probably wanted some more things about the course itself, but that's what I
think. Folks, you can read there what it's all about, and I don't want to go into the details of it. And if you have questions about it, certainly we'd be more than happy to answer it. And I will say,
we just want to throw in one thing, if we could. This one made a conscious choice that this was something she wanted to do. It was something that she found interesting when she was on calls. She thought, wouldn't it be thrilling to have my own personal connection here where I can sort of get a perspective when I'm in the midst of something, or a perspective when I'm embarking upon something, or whatever it might be. But early on, one of her questions for us through another was, but what if I do it wrong? What if I say something wrong? What if it's not really you? What if it comes out and it's all muddled and I make a mess of it? What if? She had all these what ifs. And our simple response to her was, you can't do it wrong. We've heard us say that many times in regards to living your life on planet Earth, making choices, whatever it is that you're wanting to do with your life. You can't do it wrong. So you can't channel wrong. There is no making a mistake. You will have your own personal experience, and it may sound different from another's experience. It may be a different entity or entities. It may not be us at all. It may be another channel that you tune yourself to. And that's fine. That's wonderful. It just adds unto the mix, you see. And so we just want to really lay your minds at ease and at rest about any fear or concern that you have that, well, it won't sound like that. And we say, when we come through this one, even though it is the same basic group that is coming through Mary Beth, we do not sound exactly the same. Not exactly, because the individuals, the beings who are gracious enough to allow us to blend with them and come through in this way are different beings from each other. They have different experiences. We have different toolboxes, if you will, from which to choose words and to describe experiences and to give examples. And that's what makes all of this so rich and so exciting, and that is the big reason, in fact, that you all made the decision to come forth into this physical environment. It is exciting. It is full of diversity. We just want to hammer home one last time, you can't do it wrong. It's all good, you say.
The Course, as Tara was saying there, the Course really helps people with all of their questions and any apprehensions they have. Am I doing it right, or can I do it at all, or it's scary, is somebody going to take over my mind, or any of that stuff. We deal with all of that, and you'll find that what it comes to is something that's really wonderful. So just wanted to throw that in there. Go ahead, Robin.
Yes, there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is. I remember that somebody was having a conversation about channeling, and somebody said they were drinking a soda. And someone said, well, you shouldn't drink sugar while you're channeling. As if there were some rules about it. And I've come to understand that even though the half is down at night and after 3 glasses of wine, she can still channel. And so there are no rules about what it is. It is your creation. You have it any way you want it. So I only want to tell you that it's this way or that way, and you should do and you shouldn't do. It's up to you. What I was going to add here is it's affordable. What we really try and do here in this community is put these things within reach of people. We really try to make it something that you can get into and manage. We're going to be starting sometime in the week after next. And the investment is 12 months. We spread the payments over 12 months, even though there's a lot of front loading of the course. We spread it over the 12 months. And it's $89 a month or $8.90 for one time. We're going to do some bonuses for this webinar to try and get you over the hump here for those of you that can feel the bells ringing a bit, but still have some questions. If you commit early here, we get an extra one-on-one. We give you all the club audio downloads for free. Plus, we're also offering here a bring a friend one. In other words, if you bring 2 to the course, we'll do it for significantly less. It's about a 40% discount. Or if you want to do both, Create Your Life and Living with Source, once again, significant discount. If you think you might be ready to go here, it all starts with a free exploratory call. And we start with you, of course, the moment you commit, but that commitment starts with a one-on-one with Tara. So 30 minutes, no charge for that. If you're interested, we'll have that initial session and talk a little bit with us and discover if you were a match to it, we were a match to you, and so on. So it's simply a matter of let us know. That's all there is to it. Let's move to questions and comments. Mary Beth, we had some folk from the previous course that maybe it would be nice to hear from, because each of these people that have come to the course and started the channel has a different perspective. Everybody's perspective, as we said, is their own. It's unique.
Is Mary. Okay. Would like to describe a little of my experience. I really didn't imagine that I would be a channel, but the draw for me was the idea of a connection, maybe an opening up more to Source. And so that was the appeal to me. I'm really grateful for the encouragement that, yes, allow it to open, allow it to come through. I've gotten more practiced and better at it. I'm sometimes known as Mary One Word, because if I can grab onto one word and allow that to come through, it will flow into something more. But the one point that I've found is also that in our graduate calls, when various people will ask questions and I'll allow myself to channel, very often the wisdom that's coming out for the response to someone else often carries something that's very meaningful to me also. It might not have been a question I asked myself, and yet the words that come out are an answer or appropriate to something that I'm dealing with, and that's something marvelous.
Thanks, Mary. Kiora, go ahead.
For me, maybe it'll be beneficial to people to know that I came from a strangely different angle to all this. I kind of started to, now I can see that it was channeling. I kind of developed a way to be in touch with intuition through art making. And I discovered that I could ask any question and I would get answers and read it in the art. I was afraid when I decided to do the course that I will lose this connection, or that I will lose my honesty with myself somehow, which happened to me in my life before several times, and I didn't like it. I didn't want it to happen. It turned out that the way I look at it now is one of the best things that I did in my life, to do the course and to be connected, to do the trips into the non-physical. For me, until now, the connection it starts with pictures, with an image, sometimes moving image, moving in two ways, like a movie, but also moving in terms of emotion. I start to read into this image that I see, or this movie that I see, and from that, the words start to flow, and sometimes I leave the images, and sometimes they come back. I want to say the best thing is that this, again, I said it last night too, is the experience of being loved, the experience of love in the connection. And the same love that I receive, I give also back. I have a strong feeling that it is me talking, even though I know it's so much like me. But it's a deeper me. It's like I feel I open to like an endless space, and from there it speaks. And I get answers, and sometimes I get them in pictures, sometimes I get them in words. It's a fantastic thing to feel that I'm not alone. And it's like, just like you, Robin, I feel like the best friend I ever had, the one I channel. And it's not Tara, I think. I don't know. It has a different name.
Okay.
August Moon. My life has changed. I'm so happy I did it. I didn't lose anything. I just gained and gained and gained and continue. So for those of you, I'm also one of those who felt that, oh gosh, the way it comes to me is so different. It doesn't come like, those people open their mouths and like wisdom flows. Who knows where it comes so easily. But turned out it also comes through me. It comes different. It comes in a different way. It comes in a way that I would do if I was non-physical, which I am. That's the way I would speak. And so I didn't lose anything, really. And it's so heartwarming and wonderful. It's just human. You know, I say it's human. It's kind of the best points of being human. I don't mean human physical possibilities of emotions and understanding and loving and supporting. All that comes through wonderfully. Also, when you feel connected to the person that you channel for, it's kind of as you live in them in some way, kind of feel them from inside, which is also wonderful. It's a wonderful connection. It's very helpful for evolving, for expanding. That's actually what it does.
Thank you, Giora.
It's interesting. It has been my experience that I'm often channeling to people that, apart from being on calls, I've never met, and my connection with them is just on those calls. And yet, there is, from within me to them, such a powerful sense of connection and empathy and attachment, which goes way beyond anything that I could have experienced, with that person. Clearly, it is when I'm experiencing what Dora is experiencing of that person, the compassion, the connection, and it's massive. It's almost overwhelming at times. It is really very powerful. But thanks, Giora.
Yes. We would like to say that the most important thing that we see coming out of the experience of channeling is the final releasing of the myth that humans have, that they are separate. Once that myth, and it is a myth, is let go of, you will find so much in your world changes, because your perspective of what's happening sharpens. You understand what's going on around you. And even when you are physically alone, in other words, yours is the only body that you happen to see in vicinity of yourself, even when you are alone, you don't feel alone. You understand that you are simply seeing a physical representation that you have created, but you are always connected to a non-physical realm that is infinite, you see, and that loves you infinitely. And so that is why when one is channeling or simply helping another human being and really connecting with another being, there is such a natural pouring through of compassion and love and appreciation, because you are tapping into that greater part of you, and you are connecting not only on physical levels, but you are connecting with that other being on a non-physical level as well, you see. So if all you come out with from the program was the idea and the understanding that you're not alone, that in itself is priceless, you see, because it has impacts throughout your entire world, your world that you create. You start creating a world where things are possible. You start creating a world where things aren't so hard. Things flow more easily. You start creating a world where you can talk to this larger perspective anytime you want and gather more information and utilize that information, that inspiration, to your experiences here. So you can glean that, you can utilize that, you can enhance what is already a wonderful life experience. But when you understand that you've got all that is standing there with you, supporting you, loving you, giving you all of its appreciation that it possibly can, you see, then you feel that connection, not only with non-physical, but with all those physical beings that you see around you. It is a powerful knowing that is a result of channeling. That is another benefit.
That is the benefit, and we could not have said it better ourselves. That is so beautifully put through Rachel. We would just add here that so many times our physical friends ask us, how can I make my life better? What do I do? Give me a technique. Teach me how. And of course, we have given you many, many techniques and suggested, as we said through Rachel earlier, meditation, of course. The whole point is that if you want to have connected, flowing experience in this physical game, in this physical reality, it is about feeling good first and foremost. And when we say feeling good, we mean stepping into joy, and we mean stepping into love, and we mean stepping into that connection with Source, all that is, that greater you. And if you put that first, if you make that your priority every day, then indeed your life will get easier and easier and easier. It's not about trying to figure out how to get the stuff or the better job or the better relationship or the healthier body. It is about stepping into that place of joy, stepping into that place of connection, knowing that you are part of Source, all that is, and that you are so loved, and that you are love, and that you are never alone, and that the flow of well-being is yours already. In fact, it is who and what you are. This is all number one. And guess what? From that, from living from that point of view, then the things you are wanting in the physical, like the house and the car and all of these other things, flow to you with so much more ease and fun. One more part is just to say, look at what you can step into as you open up to being a channel, as you open up to connecting to that greater you. It is absolutely magnificent and really infinite. Good. Robin?
Good. Well, we've got a couple of questions here. Let me go to Johnny's question, which is, when I meditate and quiet the voices in my mind, am I in fact closing the channeling door?
We would say this. When you sit to meditate, you are in effect breathing, of course, and we recommend that your focus go to something very rhythmic and soothing as breathing is. You see, it could be music, it could be a candle, it could be lots of things that you choose to focus on. But anything that you can do to sort of, as you said, quiet your mind. And when you quiet your mind and you quiet those voices that you're talking about, you are not shutting anything down. In fact, what you are doing is you are allowing your physical to relax into communion, alignment with your non-physical. And so once you have quieted, as you said, those voices, you may then get a very clear voice come through in your mind. You may speak or you may hear it in your head, but it will feel very easy. It will not be confusing. It will be clear. You can ask for it. In fact, after a few minutes of meditating and feeling very relaxed, you can ask Source, you can ask your inner being, what would be useful for me to know now? Or give me an idea of this or that, or whatever it is that you're wanting to know. You can put that question out there, and sometimes you'll get an answer immediately. And sometimes you'll get an answer later, after you're done meditating. And you're walking down the street and you see something and you suddenly realize, that's it. That's what I was asking. That's what I wanted to know. And it could be the next day, you see. But we would say that it is okay to relax the mind, relax those voices, relax. Because when you do get something from Source, it feels like clarity. It feels like love. It feels good. It doesn't feel confused. It doesn't feel like things coming from all sides. It will feel like flow, like breathing, you see. And that's all we're trying to do when we encourage physical friends to meditate, is to just get in the flow with your inner being, with your broader perspective, so that you are open to feeling good, first and foremost, even if you don't get anything and you don't have to ask for anything other than just to commune with your inner being, just to be there, just to relax. That's enough in and of itself. But it's okay to ask, too, from that perspective. So we wouldn't worry about quieting those voices. It's because often when physical friends first sit to meditate, they'll say, but I have all these thoughts just bombarding. And we say, well, because you've trained your minds to think that they must be on at all times. You see, you've trained your physical mind to be thinking, and that's not a bad thing, you see. But sometimes the mind goes into overgear, and particularly when you first ask it or are training it to be more quiet, you see. It's like if you have a child and you've allowed that child to stay up all hours of the night, and then you decide, you know, this really isn't working very well for me, but it's really not working very well for the child because they're tired all the time and cranky and not really clear and having a rough time, so the bedtime will now be 8 o'clock. Well, you can count on kicks and screams and tantrums right up front, you see, because you are training, you see, the child. You're training yourself first and foremost. But this is not unlike training the mind. And once the mind gets in the routine, just as with channeling, just once the mind gets in the routine of quieting down, it will look forward to it, you see. It will be just a matter of sitting down and taking a few deep breaths, and you're right there. It is a practice. It is a practice. And it has many, 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 many benefits on all levels, physical and non-physical, for you. So we are big advocates of meditation. We are big advocates of training that mind of yours to relax and settle in and tune in to Source.
You know, we would just answer this one that the monkey mind is often a term that we would use, that rat-a-tat-tat, all those thoughts that just go on and on and on. It's an old habit. As we were saying through Rachel, it is about retraining the mind. But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you, you see. It is just an old habit that you continue to go back to in your thinking, in your consciousness, even when you're getting quiet. And in fact, when you're getting quiet or attempting to get quiet, it will show up even more at first, because that old habit of thought doesn't want to go, so to speak, you see. So it is about just continually being gentle with yourself and being loving with yourself, and just knowing that as you give it a go each day, perhaps bit by bit, you will learn to relax your mind more and more. And as you learn to let go of those old habits of thought, then the true you, then your consciousness that is expanded, that is connected to that greater you, will start to really come forth for you. And that's where the feelings of love start to really come in, answers to questions you may have. as we were saying through Rachel, you will really know the difference by how you feel. It will feel absolutely wonderful to you, even if it is a subtle wonderfulness. It won't have any kind of chatter around it. It won't feel like that. It will feel very relaxed, calm, peaceful, deeply peaceful. So we say to you, allow yourself to get started. Don't judge yourself on your progress. Just do a little bit each day, a little bit of quieting your mind, and you will see great results. The little steps mean a lot when you are learning to change your habits of thought.
And one last thing we would just throw in here is that physical mind is a wonderful thing. And it is, you have trained it to take very good care of you, to be aware that there's a truck coming down the street and perhaps now wouldn't be a good time to step out. You've just trained your minds to do wonderful things for you. So when this one began meditating, we recommended that she keep a piece of paper next to her so that if there was something that she just couldn't let go of, that kept coming back, that I have to remember that for tomorrow, or, oh, what a great idea, because often in the middle of meditation, you will come up with an inspired idea. Something will come up and like, boom, a question was answered. That is source. That is connection. But you want to continue with the meditation, but you don't want to lose the thought. So write it down. Keep a piece of paper next to you if that is helpful at the beginning. It was very helpful for this one because then she could write it down and not feel worried for the rest of the 15 minutes or whatever it was that she might not get back to that thought again, that was a great thought she wanted to hold on to. So just a little practical note on the end there.
And we have one more hand raised here that we'll get to. I just wanted to make a quick comment here, and that is, even as you heard Gehora say that, he was concerned that if he got into this channeling, it may close down some of the other sort of channeling experiences he had. To which I would say, there's nothing you cannot be, do, or have by law of attraction. You create this experience. There are no rules about it that you have to live with. They are your rules. And so even with this question that we've just been answering here, as you heard Tara say here, set your own intentions. Make your own rules here about what happens. There are no hard and fast rules. It is your experience, your creation. Yes. Yeah. Good. Go ahead.
Hi. I've never done this before. This is wonderful. What is the difference? I guess just decided that I want this experience in my life. I want to channel, and just recently I've lost my husband, and he's been gone a year now. And what is the difference between channeling to talk to our loved ones that have passed, or talking to our higher guides, or the people that experience, like Jane Roberts talking to Seth? Is it the same? I guess I don't know. When I say I want to channel, I want to do all of that.
Robin,
does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I'm wanting Robin, I'm feeling urged to ask Robin to talk about the experience that Eva had. Do you feel like doing that?
Sure. When Eva, my other half, started the channel, she channeled a variety of entities. And at one point, I had a friend, I think this is what Mary Beth's referring to, a friend who died of cancer. I was sitting back here in my office here thinking about that person, and I'd always heard Tara saying you can experience anybody. And I thought, well, okay, Robin, put your money where your mouth is. So what about if I reach out to Diana? And immediately, and I closed my eyes, and when you close your eyes, you get this sort of dirty brown look of light, which is the light coming through your eyelids. But there was this instant, vivid red pattern, and it was like getting a hug from the inside out. It was quite a novel experience. And I talked about it with Eva, and on a couple of occasions now, she has in fact brought Diana through. And once, of course, I was just talking with some friends about my experience, and Eva was there, and she began to channel Diana once again. So as I was saying before, there are no rules about this, right? Whatever you want, you can have. So this can be an experience that you design. There's nothing you cannot be, do, or have about this or anything. And this is, as we said, no exception here, right? So it is your call. So yes, you can have it all. You can do all of that and more.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Good. All right. Are there any other questions in the Q&A? Is there going to be a replay of this call? We've had that asked several times. The answer is yes, there will be a replay, and we'll make sure you get the links to both the calls from last night and tonight. And there's some things we went into a greater length on last night's call. So that's it. I think it's time to wrap up here. Any closing remarks here from Tara?
We simply want to say, as we say at the end of all of our interactions with physical friends, is that we have had a wonderful time, and we appreciate your wanting to connect. We appreciate your wanting to know. We appreciate you wanting to expand your physical and non-physical life experience, because we can tell you that you're having both experiences at the same time. Just because you are here in physical doesn't mean that you are not having a non-physical experience. You most certainly are. And we can tell you without the shadow of a doubt that the non-physical you, for each of you, for all of you, is bursting with love and bursting with appreciation for all that you have added unto all that is, you see. We like to remind you that you are part of the fabric of all that is, and all that is would not be without you. And so that is how important you are to us. You are wonderful, magnificent, creative beings. And we want you, through your experience with Source, with us, with connecting to all that is, with yourself, to experience the absolute knowing of who you are, and to benefit from the perspective that all that is has to offer, that shines a light on what's happening in your experience and reminds you that you are the creator of your reality. You are the one who is directing the show, always. Indeed, we love you, each and every one of you. And that is all we wanted to say.
Okay. So thanks everybody for joining us on this webinar. Thanks to Mary Beth and Rachel, and thanks to Tara. And we'll catch up with you all soon, hopefully, Saturday morning or whenever. So bye everybody.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.